Hello and welcome on in, everybody. Good to see you. Hope you're all doing well, having a good Tuesday. My name is Sam Peterson. I'm going to be your host for today's Photoshop challenge. And for today's challenge, we are doing some combining text with photography. So this is kind of a another back to basics challenge. If anyone's new, I'm hoping this gives you some good fundamental tools to work with, some good ideas to play with. If you're more advanced in Photoshop or if you're a veteran of these challenges, definitely feel free to take these and run with it, kind of do whatever sort of technique you want, get creative with it, have fun with it. But yeah, I'm hoping we have some good techniques you guys can play with today. What's up, Rob? Good to see you. Jennifer, Frank, Susan, Afroja, Anki, Gareth, welcome on in. I saw Wade in there. Susan, what's up, everybody? Well, let's jump right into it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump into Photoshop and we're going to go for the most fundamental, the most basic way to combine text with photography, which is the clipping mask. If anyone's not familiar with the clipping mask, it's definitely a fundamental tool of Photoshop. Very easy to do. Let me show you right now. I have my tool, my text tool selected over here on the left. You can use T for the hotkey and we'll just type in some text like paradise. You can't see that because it's tiny, so I'm going to select that. I'm going to scale it up here. Or what you can do is you can grab the Move tool, hotkey V, and just scale it up here, and it'll automatically be adjusting that font size for you. So it doesn't matter what color it is. It might be easier to see on this particular image if it's white rather than black, but this works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a background layer because we're going to clip this background image to the text, but we need a background after that. So I'm going to do Control or Command Shift N to create a new layer. You can also go up to Layer, New, and then a New Layer. But I like using hotkeys, and I recommend getting used to hotkeys for any tools you use frequently. Let's make that white. We'll grab this sunset image, move it on top of our paradise text, click and drag, and then I will right click and do Create Clipping Mask. Another thing you can do, I'm going to Control Z that, is you can hold on Alt or Option and hover between the two layers you want to clip to each other, and you'll see this little arrow pop up. You can click that, and that'll clip it the same way. That might be a little bit faster. So from here, what I want to do is I want to make my sunset, I want to make that a smart object rather. And this is just so I can scale it up and down and not lose resolution. So from here, I can move this around, put it where I want it. I can zoom out and grab these corners with the Move tool. And just kind of scale it exactly where I want it as well. I want a little bit of the sunset. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. From here, if I want to make it pop out a little bit more, I could double click the text layer to bring up the layer styles. Maybe try out a drop shadow just to give it a little bit more punch against that background. I think that looks pretty good. My settings, they're nothing special. You can try playing around with this and change the angle of it, change the opacity. I like to not have my drop shadows be too bold. It can look a little bit harsh, a little bit fake. Distance is 30, spread is 0, size is 49. I think that all looks pretty good, but you can play around with that and kind of do it to taste. From here, I might just want to try doing a contrasting color. The white doesn't contrast with the light colors of the text as much as I like, so I might try like a cool color. Maybe like a seafoam green. Something a little bit brighter, a bit more green. That looks kind of cool. And I'm going to select both of my layers, my text and my image, and just kind of center it. So that looks pretty good. Very simple way to do it. This is a very common technique. So if you're not familiar with clipping masks, this kind of gives you some ideas to play with. So what I want to do next is talk about like how can we have text and photos interact a little bit in a more involved way than what we just did. Clipping masks are great, but let's try something a step above that. And for that, I want to go into my assets layer here. I'll just keep it like this. We have a little blue border that works, blue-green. And what I want to do with this leaf image is mask the text behind the leaves to get a little bit of depth. So that's a very common way you'll see in a lot of images to make text and photography interact, is to actually use masking to make it seem like it's part of the scene in terms of depth. So what you can do is you can come up with a phrase, whatever works with your image and what you want to create. But you can kind of visualize ahead of time. If we're doing like welcome to the jungle, I'm going to Control A to highlight all of that, and I'm going to change the color here at the top to white. Make it easier to visualize. You do like welcome to, I'm just clicking my layer each time to reset it. I got T as a hotkey. I just hit my paradise text, so I'm going to click out of that, Control Z, hide those things. We'll try that again. The jungle. And the reason I'm saying this is because it helps to visualize this ahead of time. You can kind of decide like how is the text going to be arranged, make sure the flow actually makes sense, make sure it's readable, kind of see what size you want it and where you're going to mask it behind. So if I find a leaf like, oh, jungle would go really well behind maybe this leaf right here, you can kind of arrange the text ahead of time before you actually spend time masking and see, is this composition going to work? So I've actually arranged that just to save a little time. I tried to do two different things. Welcome to the jungle. You can see I varied the text size for emphasis. I kind of gave it a good flow. I also had where the wild things are, but I think we're going to go with welcome to the jungle here. So what I want to do is I want to use my object selection tool for this. I love the object selection tool. Very, very useful. It can be very, oh no, Photoshop crashed on me. One sec, everybody. Let's pop this back up. Get right back to where we were. I think we just lost our paradise text. So it's a reminder to save for everybody. Let's see, put my stream document back up and we're good to go. So let's get back to where we were. We lost our paradise, but I'll post in the Discord for y'all. All right, let's try it this time. So from here, let's open up our text too. All right, so we can select our different leaves that we want. So what I'll do is select the leaf for welcome first. I don't want these. So I'm just deselecting by Alter Option. And now I have that leaf selected that I want for welcome. So I'm going to click on welcome and I'm going to hit this mask button. Actually, let me format that right so you can see. This little mask button down here at the bottom of the layers panel. And now we have the inversion of what we want. So I'm just going to click the little mask here that it created and do Control or Command I to invert that mask. And we're just going to repeat this process. Look at any leaves I want, and I'm saving. I'm saving. I want it masked, the two text, I want it masked behind those two leaves. So let's see if object selection can get that for me. Let's try to hold on Shift and select the rest of the leaf. That got that. So I'm going to go to the two text, mask that, click the mask, Control or Command I. Just repeating the process. We'll do jungle now because jungle is a little bit more involved. I want it behind this leaf. I want it behind this leaf. I didn't select it perfectly, but it still got it. This leaf over on the right side and this bottom leaf. So we got like 4 leaves that I want covering jungle, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go to my jungle text. I could even invert the selection ahead of time with Control or Command Shift I to invert my selection and then mask it that way. But you can always just invert the mask with Control or Command I. And we'll do it lastly with this text here. I'm going to use the object selection tool to select these 2 leaves right under the, and we'll mask the with it. And then invert that selection by selecting mask, Control or Command I. So we have a little bit of depth here. One thing I might want to do is add a little bit of shadow to add some more realism and integrate it a little bit better. So I'm going to go into I'm going to make some new layers here. I'm going to do Control Command Shift N, and I'll just call this shadow. And I'm going to use the blending mode multiply for that. So I'm going to duplicate that with Control Command J and move it above each text. Control Command J, move it above. So we should have 4 shadow layers above each one of the text layers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these and do that Alt or Option click trick to clip each one of the shadow layers to each one of the text layers. Now, I don't know if we'll have time to do all of these, but I'll show you some of the major ones. I'm going to select the shadow layer for my welcome text, and I'm going to get a soft round brush, an airbrush here, but I'm going to select a desaturated purplish blue, maybe kind of more in the blues and greens than the pinks, because it's kind of jungle colors. I want some cool shadow, but maybe with a tint of green. So I can try that, see if that's a good shadow. I can make it darker. That looks like a pretty good color shadow to me. So I'm going to do Control Command A, select all of that, and just delete it. I was just testing out the color. And then Control Command D to deselect. These are all hotkeys I use super often. So I'm just going to kind of paint here. And if you need a more subtle shadow, a more subtle buildup, and you're using a mouse, just lower your flow a little bit. And I'm just going to go to each shadow. I'm doing 2. Adding a little like ambient occlusion shadow of sorts. Now this is for the shadows from the top angle, like for welcome, are going to be a bit more bold than the shadows coming from the bottom. Since the light will be coming from the top, it is diffused lighting, it is ambient light. But we still would have a little bit of occlusion shadow on the bottom here. But I'm going to make the shadows coming from the top a bit more apparent. You could even add like a little bit of, just a gradient if you feel like you want to put another part of it in shadow. Maybe I'll go even darker on my color to get like a stronger shadow right next to the leaf. I'll do that for the welcome text too. I want that to be kind of bold. So there we go. Now we have some integrated text, that feels like it's part of the scene. And you can kind of do whatever you want to that text. You could even clip textures and things to the text. You could color it, all of that. But that's a little bit more involved and in-depth. And one thing I definitely want to show you before we move on is what if the text isn't exactly where we want it to be, right? What if you want to move it? So you select your move tool, you move it, but the mask was very specific about where it is. Well, that's not necessarily a problem because we can go in and we can delink the mask from the text layer. See that little chain icon? Click that to remove it, and make sure you're selecting on the text, because if you have the mask selected, now I'm moving the mask. So I'm going to Control Command Z. Make sure you have the text selected, and now you can arrange it. And since we masked out that whole leaf, you have some flexibility on like the size of it. We can scale it up, but that shadow is going to stay right where it needs to be. So that gives you some flexibility to kind of rearrange things after. If once you have it all in place, you're like, oh, okay, jungle doesn't look as good as I want. You're not stuck with that. You just click that link, make sure you have the text selected, and you can kind of move it around a little bit. So let's move on to another technique. And this one will be kind of using portraiture with some text. So let me go into my assets folder. We have this image. Let me try this real quick. All right, so I'm going to move him in his own document. I just selected it all with Control Command A, and then I made a new document, and it created the size from the clipboard, and I just Control or Command V, or sorry, yeah, Control or Command V to paste it. It might be easier to do this in its own document, just so we're not crowding this one up too much. Hey, what's up, Cody? Good to see you. Welcome on in, everybody. General Kenobi. Cool effect, amazing one. Cool, I'm glad you guys like that. Hey, what's up, CR? Okay, so let's do something here. We're gonna do like some sort of maybe magazine type ad sort of image. And what I wanna do is I wanna crop into the portrait. I know we're gonna have a tighter crop than this. So let's crop in a bit. I don't know how tight. It's not going to be, it's going to be tighter than this, but I want to do this first. So let's do, just save this just in case. All right, so what I want to do is make the portrait a smart object. I'm going to right click it, convert to smart object, and we're going to desaturate the portrait. I'm going to use Control or Command U, but you can also go up to image adjustments and do it. You'll see that the hotkey is Control or Command U for hue and saturation. I just like using hotkeys. Get that speed up. And from here, I want to mask out part of the portrait. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my marquee tool, my rectangular marquee tool over in the top left there. And I'm going to select half of his face. I'm going to select the left side, the left half, maybe right there. And I'm going to go ahead and mask this out. At the bottom here, you'll see the little mask icon. Let me make sure you guys can see that on my screen. Yeah. At the bottom of the layers panel, this little rectangle, it says add layer mask if you hover over it. And I'm going to go ahead and make the background layer that we have black. There we go. So I'm going to create some text here. And we'll use the same font that I've been using all stream. Let's see. I can't see anything, so I'm going to make this white. Click this little box up at the top, little color picker, and we'll make some white text that we can read. I'm going to do all caps. So this is going to be like a cologne ad or something, you know, some fictional image we're doing for a magazine. So we'll put something like, when they, let's do, I think we can fit 2 rows. When they smell you, they'll be like, man, that guy smells good. I'm a professional copywriter, by the way, guys. So if you can't come up with slogans that are this brilliant off the cuff, don't worry. I've gotten a lot of practice. So what we can do is we can kind of visualize where this is going to land. What I can do is I can click the mask near his face. I can right click it and do disable layer mask, and that will temporarily disable it. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that this text, which we're going to be using with a clipping mask, is over the light side of his face, because that's going to make the text pop against the dark background. So what I need to do is I might need to go into the Windows panel and do paragraph. Oh, sorry, character. Character is what I want. Now, what you can do is you can mess around. I think I already have these edited from the last time because it looks pretty similar, but you can mess around with leading to make it more compact. And this might be, I don't know if this is a cardinal sin to all you typography enthusiasts out there. Messing with the tracking and the leading, but I'm going to compact it a bit so that this can all fit where we need it to. And I'm also just going to hold on. You can size it up here, but if you hold on Shift, I can actually compress it down this way. So let's see. I guess it re-enabled it there. Kind of get this where we want. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to disable the layer mask again so I can see where the text is landing. Squish that pretty good. Something like that should work. You know, I'm kind of fitting it on his face here. Let's re-enable this layer mask. Move this into place, and I think that looks pretty good right there. I do not fear the dark side as you do. Okay, so next up, what I want to do, let me see, what did I do? I did the smush. Yeah, okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to Control or Command click the text. See that just selects the contents on that layer. So it selected our text. And what I can do is hide that text, go over to my mask for the portrait, and I can do Alt or Option backspace. And I have white selected. You'll see here at the top I have white selected. So what that does is that fills in the current layer selection completely with that color. So Alt or Option backspace is a very useful tool to quickly fill a layer with a selected color. I could do the opposite if I selected black, control or Alt or Option backspace, and it fills it in. So I'm going to Control Z to leave it where it was, Control or Command D to deselect, and now we got a little bit of masking there for that slogan on the side of his face. So what I want to do is I want to crop this a bit further. We're going to have a tighter crop for a more dramatic image here, so we can capture the intensity of his smell. All right, looks pretty good. Maybe I'll crop it up a little bit. What I might want to do here is go into Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Levels, click OK, and then clip that to our portrait. So I can right click, do Create Clipping Mask, or you can do the Alt and Option click trick. I just want to make this kind of intense contrast to fit like this, dramatic black and white ad. So I'm going to increase the darks a little bit, but I'm going to increase the lights mostly on the left, especially so that text pops out. I don't want to do it so much that the highlights on his face get blown out though, so I'm going to be kind of careful with that. Could even do the middle slider, which kind of adjusts some of those midtones, and you can brighten it up a bit, which might help. So you can see that helps quite a bit. Hey, what's up, Steve? What you can also do if you want to cheat a little bit is we can turn our text back on and just lower the opacity. And what that will do is kind of wash out some of the dark spots of his face where it might be a little bit harder to read the text. So if I click that on and off, you'll see how those dark spots where the text gets a little hard to read kind of helps you see it a little bit better. But I would be very subtle about that so we still have the image showing through. So maybe I'll do like 5%. It's just a little boost. All right, so that's our little cologne advertisement. That's how you say it, right? Advertisement. Hey, what's up, Daniel Human? Daniel, awesome video on the Discord, by the way. That was really cool. If anyone didn't see, Daniel did a time lapse of yesterday's challenge. Very neat to see. So before we go, we got a couple minutes. This is kind of extra. I was going to just talk about, varying other methods that we could have. Let me give this image just a background placeholder. Maybe black would be more suitable. So if you're doing something with a city, there's lots of ways you can approach this. And really from here, I just want you to think about if you're incorporating text into an image, what's like a visually pleasing way you can do it? What's a clever way you can do it? What is a way that you can do it to make it feel like it's part of the scene? So let's say we want to do like New York City. I'm going to make that white so I can see it better. I'm going to go ahead and scale that up. Something like that. Now, one thing you could do, let's say we have you could create this with a rectangle shape, but I'm just going to use the marquee tool. Create a rectangle around my text. And then make a new layer. Control or Command Shift N. And just fill that in with the paint bucket tool. Fill it in with white. So we could kind of do the same thing we did before, where we do Control or Command and we click the text. We go down to our white block layer that we just made. I'll just name this layer white. And then we mask that out, but that would just create text. So we can Control or Command I the selection, or the mask to invert it. And if we get rid of our text out of the way, you have this little like punched out effect. So that's a common thing you'll see, this sort of punched out effect. I could also adjust this so it's a little bit more attractive. So that's one option. And another popular thing you can do, and I think we're just out of time, is mask it behind the objects, kind of like we did with the leaves. Using something like the polygonal lasso tool might be good, but if we have, this tool here just to select this tower, show you a quick and messy way since we're pretty much out of time. You would just do this for any and every building you want to mask it behind. And then I'm going to go to my mask, Control or Command I, because I want the opposite. And I didn't select far enough down with that. But you see where I'm going. I'm going to deselect I'm going to unclick the link so I can move it around. If you do something like that, you can kind of integrate it between buildings. You can get really creative with that, do as many as you want. But this is just some techniques to think about. If you guys are new, I'm hoping this gives you some ideas and techniques and methods to play with. Like I said, if you're experienced, take this challenge and get as creative as you want with it. Really just do a challenge where you have text and photos interacting in some sort of interesting way, but it's completely open to you how to do that. Check out the Discord posted on there. This is where we're sharing all the challenges that we do. This is where I'm giving feedback. People are posting everything they do and giving feedback to the community as well. So definitely check it out, join, share your designs. I'd love to see them. And I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I will see you all next time. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a good one.